If you're anything like me and you're feeling 22, this is going to be right up your street. 500,000 followers just from attending the said big American football game. That American football game has now been recorded as the most watched in history of American football, but also making it the most popular TV program in US history. Hello. Welcome back to another episode of the Have You Heard podcast. A very exciting one today. And if you're anything like me and you're feeling 22, this is going to be right up your street. Lots more of that to come. I'm Adam, a business director here. I'm joined by Lucy, our influencer director. And much to probably your personal delight, we are going to be exploring or at least using the recent fame. Well, it's not even recent fame. She's been famous for ages, but the recent extensive conversation and trending nature of Taylor Swift as a platform to discuss brand partnerships, relevancy, influencer marketing, and all that good stuff. So I'm going to kick off by hitting you with a load of stats and facts.
Please do. I have my Eras tour.
Yes, which is a great sort of lead in if we're talking Eras tour. So Taylor Swift recently, obviously big news. She's seems to be everywhere and very much part of a certain big American football experience that happened recently. For legal reasons, we can't say exactly what it is, but hopefully you will know. But outside of that, probably over the last 12 months, give or take, she's been doing lots of other stuff. So some big numbers. $123 million generated in the opening weekend of the Eras tour in the cinemas. Which was attended by
me,
Lucy, but also an estimated 9.5 million, which is ridiculous, really, if you think about it, of people going to watch a concert on film after
a true experience. That's all I can say.
Outside of just her Eras tour, which also is estimated as a concert and a tour to have generated $4.5 billion worldwide, she's obviously been in and around the American football and the Grammys, and her social following has had a massive growth off the back of that. 700,000 followers in growth post or within the 3 days following the Grammys when she announced a new album. More recently, 500,000 followers just from attending the said big American football game, which is mad. Now, I wouldn't want to sit here and say that Taylor Swift is the pure driving force of this as well, but it seems that her presence may have had an impact.
Yeah.
But that American football game has now been recorded as the most watched in history of American football, but also making it the most popular TV program in US history. Madness.
Good for her.
Let's just take that in for a minute. Absolutely ridiculous. So the big question, I suppose, of hitting with all of these facts is what really does that have to do with a social media agency, but also influencer marketing as a whole? Because and I know you feel very strongly about this, and you've talked about it before on these podcasts, of actually our focus is really on like digital content creators, people who have built an audience online through, YouTube or social platforms. We're dealing with massive megastars here. Recently as well, outside of just Taylor Swift, The Bear, massive TV show or streaming program, Jeremy Allen White and Calvin Klein was a huge thing. And I'm not even going to try and pronounce the second name, but Barry from Saltburn did a recent with Bumble. The big question is, obviously, these are super relevant people at the moment. They're trending, mass attention. Disregard all the great work that you and your team do in terms of checking data, stats, input, and all that kind of stuff. From a start point, what is it that influencers or the influence industry or dealing with influencers and brands can take or learn from or build on, and how important is that sort of like relevancy of a talent or a brand partner?
it's more a case of, if you as a brand are looking to work with a mega relevant celebrity or a social media influencer who's really kind of on the rise, you're almost putting a bit of a statement out there by partnering with them of going like, hey, we know exactly what you're into. Here's us partnering with them because we also see that they're a really good fit for us as a brand.
Yeah.
Like, it's a real statement when those kind of partnerships happen. Relevance is super important when it comes to any sort of partnership, particularly where you're just trying to get, as many eyeballs on that content or that partnership as possible. So when it comes to kind of working with influencers, for example, if you as a brand are looking to gain mass awareness of a new product launch or a service that you're offering, ultimately, it's really important you explore working with those big up-and-coming social influencers or celebrities, because those are the people who are really kind of gaining traction online or out in pop culture or whatever it might be, who ultimately a really wide audience is equally kind of aware of. They really like them. They're listening to everything that they've got to say. So it is a really key part of when it comes to selecting the talent you have as part of your wider partnerships, essentially.
Yeah. And I suppose it's like an interesting one as well, because at the last sort of point around the viewership for the big game, how it's really interesting to me to look at it and go, well, how much did Taylor Swift drive interest? From a brand perspective, you would argue if you were looking at the product of the event that she was attending, she might be the last person you would think about partnering with, because it's not. And that, again, like sort of talks about like that relevancy of someone just being they're relevant, they're being talked about, the impact that they can make.
Yeah.
It's not, and again, this probably lead into our next talking point in a minute, not somebody that really feels maybe relevant to the brand as such, but because they're relevant in the global sphere at that moment, can actually bring something to your product.
Like, yes, Taylor Swift was not kind of billed or publicized as appearing at said event or anything. It was just a case of people clocked on. She was in Tokyo on her tour. Was she actually going to make it via her private jet to Las Vegas to support her boyfriend in this big football game? Ultimately, her fans, who are like hooked on every little thing that she has to say, wanted to tune in to see if that was going to happen. And lo and behold, there she was with all her friends in tow and what have you. Therefore, it's no wonder a lot of the viewership did skyrocket for that particular event. Yes, do we know exactly how much of that portion of viewers were driven by her fans? No, we don't really know, but you can make a rough estimation, I'm sure. But yeah, we don't really know kind of the full ins and outs and what have you of all of that. But, well, yeah, I guess it's kind of, she herself had a relevance to said event, but sometimes when you think of these people as a brand, like, I don't know, some of the brands that we work with, I don't even think we'd necessarily consider, let's maybe try and get like someone like Taylor Swift involved in something like this, because it just seems like unthinkable, because they're almost like so enormous, so relevant elsewhere in the world and everything. Like, how can we make this part of what it is that we're trying to achieve and everything? But actually, there is no harm sometimes in thinking sky's the limit with this stuff and going, actually, could we do something really epic and really mega, as Bumble and Calvin Klein have obviously kind of very recently done with the actors we were discussing as well.
Yeah. And I think that sort of point around just because they're relevant, like what we're trying to achieve, like, and I suppose that's the interesting thing of like using what's happened recently as a platform and how it's important from an influencer perspective, because we approach it, and certainly the amount of rigor and process thinking that goes in from your perspective, from an influencer team and the output, is so much more granular than just they're trending, because
for sure,
we have objectives, we have things that clients want to do and want to achieve, and it's more important for us that we're then just sometimes hitting awareness and reach. We're trying to add brand value. We're trying to create conversation. We're trying to drive traffic. We're trying to do all of these things. The other day you shared a very interesting update or some stats around last year of 2023 around the influencer space, in that, you know, more generalists, influencers, when we're specifically talking about influencers, had the most work for last year, but the greatest engagement, ROI, whatever you want to call it, actually came from specialist influencers. So looking at sort of some of that, to give a bit of context, of the top 100 influencers who posted the most ads in 2023, lifestyle generalist creators delivered an average consumer engagement rate of 0.6% on a sponsored post, whereas specialists focusing on a vertical delivered an average of 6.4%. That's mad, isn't it?
Yes, but I think it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense to me, where I'm so involved in all the work. And there's definitely been campaigns we've delivered over the last year where that report from Cork absolutely aligns with what we have then reported to our clients before. There's one campaign I can think of last summer where we were promoting a product and worked with a lot of kind of macro influencers, but then also like smaller travel influencers, family influencers, like people who had kind of specific niches and everything. And we were finding the same results there. Actually, engagement was really strong with those specialist niche influencers, whereas those larger influencers, they absolutely drove they actually still did drive a lot of really good engagement, which all I'm gonna say. But they also drove a lot of like reach, awareness, like really great community engagement as well. But for the client that we were working with, they really wanted to be targeting people who were, I don't know, about to go on holiday, people who had families. There was like very specific audiences that they were trying to target with all of it. And we were able to prove to them that, it's been really worthwhile you having this good mix of different types of influencers as part of your campaign, because you've driven mass awareness, but you've also delivered some really great engagement along the way. And ultimately, I think the people that you're engaging with the most are far more likely then to kind of take action. So it's about how do you continue to engage with those particular smaller niche influencers over a longer period of time, because their audience is super engaged with them anyway. And the more you kind of keep hitting them and everything, the more likely, in theory, they should be able to kind of take action in terms of what it is that you're trying to achieve as a brand. I think it's just about where we work with a lot of our clients, a lot of the time they want to achieve great awareness. They also want to kind of engage audiences. So it's ultimately about having that real mix of different types of influencers as part of your wider campaign. You can't just go with this like one size fits all approach or anything. If you just wanted awareness, or if you just worked with these big macro influencers or people with really large audiences, cool, you're getting the brand out there, but is anyone actually then gonna take action or whatever? So it makes sense that these lifestyle-y, more generalist influencers are getting a lot more work because they have broader appeal, but you do need to have that mix of specific niches, because your audience is also made up of a real mix of different types of people as well. So it's important to consider that, I would suggest.
I think there's also elements in there, what you're talking about, of like finding that brand influencer or talent balance. You know, Taylor Swift took a lot of attention. I mean, I woke up the following morning and she was trending #1 worldwide, which is, given what the events that were happening, normally it's a given that is. And to see that, and I suppose my point around that is the impact then is, although there's all these great stats about it being most watched and driving this and driving that, the sole benefit is for her, good or bad. In that instance, the conversation is all about that person. So if you're a brand looking to do that, it's what's the value and are you getting the right value from it? Just, yes, you've picked someone who's trending or is popular. And I think the same with Jeremy Allen White. You know, the big point there was, I think it probably took me 2 or 3 days to realize what the brand campaign was. It was just all about him, and that was the big talking point. Now, obviously, an avenue to putting eyes on a brand, it's really important, but it's kind of missed. I don't know what the product was. I don't know what, if it's just a brand, do you know what I mean? Whereas when you're working, like you say, with those niches, or actually putting those layers of rigor in to understand the audience and who you're talking to, there's a bit more of a rounded question or output or creative, which is more specific, as opposed to just this big, I'm a person, I'm famous, I'm doing this. Has its place, but again, it's about that brief and what you're trying to do.
What a win-win though for said US football event, where so much advertising happens for that one event, and so like ultimately by having all the Swifties flock to watch, it's like so many brands. I can't think. There's one brand that literally did like, I think they spent an absolute fortune on that advertising, and they had so many ads throughout the game. But like, it's just more eyeballs on that. It just makes that one event like an even more attractive opportunity for those advertisers in future. It makes the event organizers like, they're just going to want more of that. I don't really know what that's necessarily going to look like in the next 12 months or anything, but like, it's been such a win-win for them. And with her as well, she's got a new album coming out and everything. She's obviously, her tour is sold out, so good luck trying to get tickets and everything. But like, it's just, there has also been like bad press and everything, and there's been some negative conversations off the back of it, where you've got all those like those football fans who are like, no, this is our one event of the year that we like really love and are really passionate about. But then you've got her there where they're kind of like, no, she shouldn't be part of this. But I don't know, I just think it's a big win-win for everyone involved ultimately.
I think it's what, $7 million for an ad spot.
Yeah.
That was probably based on previous years' eyeballs.
Yeah.
It's not bad going, is it? No. If you're getting an amount of people watching. Exactly. Additional people watching it. So yeah, I mean, the impact, but that I suppose goes back to my point before, the impact of who's winning, you know, the brand or the individual, and what value that feels like a brand win in terms of the number of eyeballs, whether they're good or bad. You know, if you from a perspective, even speaking the other week with Joey about the paid stuff and how we do so much strategy and thinking and insight goes into like, who are we targeting, who are we talking to, yes, it's great that 123 million people, how many of those were relevant? And I think that's where that balance often is, and why I think it's such an important question to ask around, popularity and relevance is so important, but actually you don't want to get too caught up in it, because it could be quite misleading, especially when you're looking at that influencer space of really defining, okay, what are we talking to? Who's going to give us the best results off the back of it? Exactly.
I mean, imagine if she didn't show up. Imagine if she didn't make it over. Then what could have happened?
Maybe it would have been an even bigger story.
Maybe.
Who knows? I suppose then, beyond obviously setting up, running these campaigns, you know, we're in the realms now of these events have happened, it's all gone a bit quiet, you know, what's going on. I think when you've run a successful influencer campaign, you've leveraged talent, you've got great results, you're no longer working with them directly for a period of time. What's the plan then? Like, how do you maintain that outside of maybe just working with more influencers? Like, what is it that we're thinking about strategically?
Well, I think it kind of goes back to what I touched upon at the start of you working with a big talent, whether they're an influencer or a celebrity, that is putting out a massive statement to your target audience of going, hey, we know what you're about and we're working with this person. Like, it's a big statement you're putting out by working with someone super, super relevant. But yeah, obviously once that kind of dies down, you've got everyone talking about your brand, or you've got them somewhat hooked to a degree, but you ultimately want to keep up that momentum. So I guess then from our perspective, it's all around, like with social content, for example, it's about making sure that your content strategy is, I'm going to use our favorite word, relevant as well. You need to make sure, like, you are putting out content, you are reaching them in the places that they're going to be found, or you're going to be giving them content that they're going to keep lapping up and enjoying from you. You've got to kind of, you can have that one big hero moment, but you do need to then think about like the next steps of that and how you kind of keep up that momentum. And then it's a case of, you know, making sure you're really analysing the results that come off the back of that and feeding that, you know, all those insights into your ever-evolving content strategy as well. Ultimately, it's really important you don't just kind of have these one big hit moments and then the lights go out and everything. You know, if you're a brand and you're working with a social media influencer, for example, you want to ensure that, you know, your social feeds and everything have equally relevant content that they are going to want to lap up, and that you continuously like deliver that content to them, to get them like more hooked and more inclined to want to, you know, keep engaging with you, keep following you, and ultimately becoming a, you know, a customer for you as well, really. Yeah.
Nice. And I think that the last point you made there about, you know, your feeds and your brand being relevant outside of those people is so important. I doubt, you know, American football channels are, you know, showing highlights of Taylor Swift's greatest hits and of the tour. Maybe it keeps them hooked, but maybe they're not doing.
Maybe I'd start watching.
Yeah. Well, exactly. I mean, yeah, get your strategy. If you need a strategy, come to us. One last question before we wrap up. Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
Best album, favorite song.
Right. So controversially, my favourite album is Reputation.
Okay.
I love that album. I don't care what anyone has to say. I love it. It's incredible. There's 2 skips on that album. The rest of it is flawless.
Perfect.
Getaway Car. What a song. I love it.
Great.
She has too many good songs. Too many good albums.
I mean, I couldn't name you one of her albums, so I can't argue.
Red?
With
1989?
No, it's all right.
I'm just now going to blare out Taylor Swift.
Yeah, do it. Put it on The Office. I'm just a bit of a blank space when it comes to Taylor Swift. Come on. Anyway, thank you for joining us. Subscribe, like, follow, do all the good stuff. You know, and we'll be back with more stuff soon. Thanks so much.